didn't. Shit. Okay, hello. I have to copy this somewhere real quick, and then I have to check and make sure I got sound. Do I have sound? Do we have sound? Do we have sound? We have a 5-second lag. Okay. Hello, happy day. Thanks for coming. I'm not having Facebook available to me or any of my friends or anything. I'm kind of like reading news and I got myself into some bullshit. I finally had to block these people. So I got one of them started following me around. It's like, oh, no, you're done. It seems that transgender people are mentally ill just because they're transgender. Hey, Hidden M, thanks for coming. Happy day. And that's just not true. The WHO a couple of years ago revised, you know, the whoever does the DSM in 2015, I think 2014 was DSM-5. It was revised and changed the name to gender dysphoria to destigmatize it some, and it was taken out of the psychosexual disorders completely, and it's more considered in, you know, in medical terms and with intersex conditions. It's a mismatch that there's different there's variants and are outside of the typical range, and that's just the way it is. And there's some people that, you know, there's probably about 10% at least, maybe more, you never know, because so many are hiding, are born with either same-sex attracted or gender diverse, I think is the buzzword of the week. I like gender variant, but gender diverse. The title of the video is also the title of the American Psychological Association's paper that I'm not sure when it was published. They're asking for a review. Content I just read is relevant or may need an update. So let's go through here and read this little pamphlet of the APA's. What does transgender mean? Transgender is gender expression or behavior does not conform to that typically associated with the sex to which they were assigned at birth. Gender identity refers to a person's internal sense of being male, female, or something else. Gender expression refers to the way a person communicates gender identity to others through behavior, clothing, hairstyles, voice, or body characteristics. Trans is sometimes used as shorthand, or behavior is gender non-conforming, will identify as a transgender person. The ways that transgender people are talked about in popular culture, academia, and science are constantly changing, particularly as individuals' awareness, knowledge, and openness about transgender people and their experiences grow. What is the difference between sex and gender? Okay, here's my first here. Okay, let me read it, and then I'll critique it. Sex is assigned at birth. Refers to one's biological status, either male or female, and is associated primarily with physical attributes such as chromosomes, hormones. Human society considers appropriate for boys and men or girls and women. These influence the ways that people act, interact, and feel about themselves. So gender may differ. Various conditions that lead to atypical development of physical sex characteristics are collectively referred to as intersex conditions. For information about people with intersex conditions, also known as disorder, oh boy, boom, there's another. That's disorders of sexual development. No, that's like that's like rejected today. They're trying to get it like don't even want to differences of sex development is almost acceptable, but they're trying to depathologize, depathologize, take the pathology out of people's understanding of intersex and transgender people. That this is the way we're born. This is it. Some of us are cool with what we've got, and others need to do a little tinkering. You know, it's like anybody else. Okay. The other thing about this is that gender, well, when you say behavior, there are innate behaviors that just, I don't know how to describe it exactly because it's something I never studied deeply. Boys and girls move differently. They pose differently. I had to train myself not to. I had to consciously suppress feminine movement to get by. So you know, to call it a social, you know, I like to rest on nature and nurture. You know that there's biological sex. It has only to do with what kind of gamete. Biological gender. We're born with a potential for male or female or neither or both. Neither and both are kind of like rarer. And transgender, there's, you know, a few percent. It's the way it is. It used to. We had no choice. We're born this way. So I think that, you know, they need, there's a biological basis for gender. And you know, it's been shown pretty clearly that when you force somebody into a gender role that's unnatural for them, they're gonna, they call it comorbidity of serious behavioral deficiencies, the really bad ones, you know, like self-harm, suicide. That pretty much go away when transgender people are allowed to express themselves as they feel best. I don't know where the arguments come from people. You know, it's like, the science is there, the history is there. You know, there's multiple genders that have existed in most cultures. Here, have transgender people always existed? Transgender persons have been documented in many indigenous Western Eastern cultures and societies from antiquity until the present day. However, the meaning of gender nonconformity may vary from culture to culture. That's true. You know, like for instance, the Two-Spirit, the Native American Two-Spirits. These are all different kinds of queers, and all these different nations have their own words for it and their own descriptions of the kind of people. And it's all a cultural thing. So what are some categories or types of transgender people? Hooey, this should be a lot of fun. Many identities fall under the transgender umbrella. The term transsexual refers to people whose gender identity is different from their assigned sex. No. Yeah, this is, yeah, no, often transsexual people alter or wish to, no, sorry. This is always transsexual people. This is where the umbrella gets broken in the ribs. One of the ribs is busted on the umbrella. Because like this goes back to the stigma and taking the pathology out of it, and transsexual is somebody who goes and gets their sex modified. Period. This is what the Truscans are always hollering about, and they're trying to enforce all their rules on everybody else, and anybody who doesn't conform to their rules, well, then they're fakes. The transgenders. That needs updating. Often, no, it's all the time. Hormone surgery and other means to make their bodies as congruent as possible with their gender identities. This process of transition through medical intervention is often referred to as sex or gender reassignment, but more recently is also referred to as gender affirmation. I like that one best because that's gender affirmation procedures. Gaps. People who were assigned female but identify and live as male and alter or wish to alter their body through medical intervention to more closely resemble their gender identity are known as transsexual men or trans men, also known as female to male or FTM. Conversely, people who are assigned male but identify as female and alter or wish to alter their body through medical intervention to more closely resemble their gender identity are known as transsexual women or trans women, also known as male to female. Some individuals who transgender from one gender to another prefer to be referred to as a man or woman rather than as transgender. Now, you have three distinct kinds, actually four. Well, we'll leave three main kinds of transgender people here that are all at odds with each other. Is the ones that are getting surgically modified, the ones who are taking hormones only, and then the ones who are living in transgender role without any medical intervention at all. And there's and there's a new one now. It seems that the entire movement, coast to coast, is imploding from within because of racism. Transgender, yeah. The National Center for Transgender Equalities had some problems with racist accusations against them lately. The whole staff swapped. I see a lot of oh, but blacks can't be racist. I'm sorry. I just can't. I can't wrap my head around this excluding. On Transgender Day of Remembrance, they're excluding all the white people from the gathering for the first 2 hours of it. And I'm like, oh. I don't understand that at all. I really don't. And it's happening all over the place. I don't know. Yeah, really. It's all over the news with NCTE. Let me get you a link about the NCTE. They had a big walkout, but they were union. They tried to union. I don't know. All I'm feeling is like we got a race problem within the LGBT movement, the queer equality movement. There's a big race problem, and it's boiling over all over the place. Well, let me find a link for you. Oh, well, here right away. It was right there on the top waiting for me. And this is you might want to read the comments too on this one. This was Abby Jensen is the director of legal affairs for Southern Arizona Gender Alliance. And she posted Mara Kiesling's statement. Mara's the founder and director chairman, whatever she calls herself, of NCTE. Big walkout. I guess they had like almost 30 people, and now they're down to 7 or something like that. They rejected the unionizing, and everybody walked. And it was they offered attractive separation packages, golden parachutes. I think my read of that, let me just finish with the APA, and then we'll move to that. Yeah, this is all people who cross dress. What a mess. Anyway, let's read the whole thing. People who cross dress wear clothing that is traditionally or stereotypically worn by another gender in their culture. They vary in how completely they cross dress, from one article of clothing to fully cross dressing. Those who cross dress are usually comfortable with their assigned sex and do not wish to change it. Cross-dressing is a form of gender expression and is not necessarily tied to erotic activity. Cross-dressing is not indicative of sexual orientation. From what I understand, the majority of cross-dressers are married heterosexuals, guys that do it all the time. But they're not, this is where, that's not transgender. If, transsexual people don't want to be associated with cross-dressers. Because somebody like me is monkey in the middle is like, hey, look, this is the way I'm born. I'm a mixable. You don't want to meet my male aspect, treat me like a woman, please. And it works. I don't get any validation arguments at all. Especially here in Tucson, because Tucson's very, 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 very proud of its diversity, and it's in the Southwest, so the people are, there's a lot of natives here, and they understand Two-Spirit people real well. The degree of societal acceptance for cross-dressing varies from males and females. In some cultures, one gender may be given more latitude than another for wearing clothing associated with a different gender. Well, hey, that's America for you. Women can dress like men, but don't you dare, if you're a guy, dress like a woman. The term drag queens generally refers to men who dress as women for the purpose of entertaining others at bars, clubs, and other events. The term drag king refers to women who dress as men for the purpose of entertaining others at bars, clubs, and other events. Here's where this is where they lose me. It's like, okay. Genderqueer is a term that some people use to identify their gender as falling outside the binary constructs of male and female. They may define their gender as falling somewhere on a continuum between male and female, or they may define it as wholly different from these terms. They may also request that pronouns be used to refer to them that are neither masculine nor feminine, such as she instead of he, or she, or here instead of his or her. Some genderqueer people do not identify as transgender. Other categories of transgender people include androgynous, multigender, gender nonconforming, third gender, and two-spirit people. Exact definitions of these terms vary from person to person and may change over time, but often include a sense of blending or alternating genders. Some people who use these terms to describe themselves see traditional binary concepts of gender as restrictive. Why are some people transgender? There is no simple explanation for why some people are transgender. The diversity of transgender expression and experiences argues against any simple or unitary explanation. Many experts believe that biological factors such as genetic influences and prenatal hormone levels, early experiences, and experiences later in adolescent or adulthood may all contribute to the development of transgender identities. How prevalent are transgender people? It's difficult to accurately estimate the number of transgender people because there are no population studies that accurately completely account for the range of gender identity and gender expression. What is the relationship between gender identity and sexual orientation are not the same. Sexual orientation refers to an individual's enduring physical, romantic, and/or emotional attraction to another person, whereas gender identity refers to one's internal sense of being male, female, or something else. Transgender people may be straight, lesbian, gay, bisexual, or asexual, just as non-transgender people can be. Some recent research has shown that a change or a new exploration period in partner attraction may occur during the process of transition. However, transgender people usually remain as attached to loved ones after transition as they were before transition. Transgender people usually label their sexual orientation using their gender as a reference. For example, a transgender woman or a person who is assigned male at birth and transitions to female who is attracted to other women would be identified as a lesbian or gay woman. Likewise, a transgender man or a person who is assigned female at birth and transitions to male who is attracted to other man would be identified as a gay man. That's an area I just don't even want to go through. Don't even want to mess with that. That's a minefield. How does someone know that they're transgender? I didn't know. I tell this too many times. It's like I hope I can find it easily. Someone I forget who it was. A well-known trans person was writing about it. It's like, how do you know you're left-handed or right-handed? This is the best way to, when did you know you were cisgender? It's like, when did you realize it all fit? Some can trace their transgender identities and feeling back to their earliest memories. They may have vague feelings of not fitting in. I had no vague feeling about it at all. It was like, oh shit, what am I doing with this thing? And I knew early, young. I mean, it made it real clear when I was like little. As soon as I opened my mouth, no, you can't do that. I'm sorry, you have a penis. And it was that. There's just no argument. Others became aware of their transgender identities or began to explore and experience gender nonconforming attitudes and behaviors during adolescence or much later in life. Some embrace their transgender feelings, while others struggle with feelings of shame or confusion. Those who transition later in life may have struggled to fit in adequately as their assigned sex, only to later face dissatisfaction with their lives. Some of them go and get so hyper male about it, they go and win Olympic medals. Some transgender people, transsexuals in particular, experience intense dissatisfaction with their sex assigned at birth, physical sex characteristics, or the gender role associated with that sex. These individuals often seek gender affirming treatments. For really bubbly rendering of that story, go to Carolyn Cossey's autobiography, and she goes into detail about why she needed to do it. It's just her sex toy. She talks about her sex toy. It's like, no, it didn't fit her way of thinking and her fantasies. Okay, well, here's what the American Psychological Association is suggesting people should do. What parents should do if their child appears to be transgender or gender nonconforming. Parents may be concerned about a child who appears to be gender nonconforming for a variety of reasons. Some children express a great deal of distress about their assigned sex at birth or the gender roles they're expected to follow. Some children experience difficult social interactions with peers and adults because of their gender expression. Parents may become concerned when what they believe to be a phase does not pass. Parents of gender nonconforming children may need to work with schools and other institutions to address their children's particular needs and ensure their children's safety. It is helpful to consult with mental health and medical professionals familiar with gender issues in children to decide how to best address these concerns. It is not helpful to force the child to act in a more gender conforming way. Peer support from other parents of gender nonconforming children may also be helpful, and that's where PFLAG comes in. Parents and families of lesbian and gays or something like that. These people are, they're trying to legislate, they're trying to make it criminal to allow it to socially transition. They're freaking out at the thought of these children getting new drugs and being chemically castrated and surgically modified, and that's not happening. All that's happening is the kids are being allowed to make their own decisions about how long to wear their hair and what kind of clothes to wear and what they want to play with. It's all about fear conditioning. No, and let's get back to the let's keep going, because this is I want to keep some focus. How do transsexuals make a gender transition? I gotta check my beans. Excuse me. I needed more water. So anyway, transitioning from one gender to another is a complex process and may involve transition to a gender that is neither traditionally male nor female. People who transition often start by expressing their preferred gender in situations where they feel safe. They typically work up to living full-time as members of their preferred gender by making any changes a little at a time. While there's no right way to transition genders, there are some common social changes transgender people experience that may involve one or more of the following: adopting the appearance of the desired sex through changes in clothing and grooming, adopting a new name, changing sex designation on identity documents, if possible, using hormone therapy treatment, and or undergoing medical procedures that modify their body to conform with their gender identity. When I first came out, my big sisters were telling me to take baby steps, and I had none of the baggage that so many of my siblings had in terms of like careers or families. And there was none of this working up to full time. It was like I never really was in the closet because I was like caught cross-dressing a couple of times when I was young and punished pretty badly, and hardly ever dressed up. Didn't need to. Look in the mirror and I was right there. I was like, well, shit. How come I just can't be me? And I just finally got to where I could take the beard off and say, okay, look, this is the way it is, and I did it. And people I'd known for years knew it was coming anyway. They knew, like the Woodstock crowd, knew that I was bagging something. They thought I was just a garden variety queer guy. So when I came out, that made a lot of sense to them. And I really hardly. It took some time before I realized that there are too many hippies that are home folks. You know, get back to the race thing. You know, it's the Grateful Dead things turned into like a sausage party, white guy sausage party. And there was thing with the hippies is like they can't be as open about it. You know, it's a little shadier. They can't like put it right in your face because they'll get called out for being assholes. So anyway, moving right along. And this is important to know. You know, there's no rule book. Everybody's different, and the doctors look at it this way too. They look at it on a case by case basis. Everybody's different. My feeling about it is the only thing that's really important is that you can like look at yourself in the mirror and be happy with what you see, and move through the day comfortable in your skin. And what makes people happy with themselves and comfortable in their skin varies from person to person. I don't particularly need to be like getting myself all dressed up all the time, and there's no way I'm gonna wear corsets and wigs and be painting my face every day. I'm a hippie, and it's too hot here. And I don't need to. You know, I'm 65 years old, so like, you know, I'm holding up pretty good. You know, most people see me as female, and if they don't, all I gotta do is say I'm not, and they get it without any argument. I hardly ever even have to reveal that I'm trans anymore. Every transgender person's process or transition differs. See, I don't even like. I don't feel like I'm doing anything like to transition. You know, when I was young, and they were trying to treat me for all these psychiatric disorders, they talk about chemical imbalance, and here now, I'm getting the right chemicals in me, and all the psychiatric issues have gone away. So I'm getting the right meds. But I prefer, you know, so many of us, you know, live inside our heads, and just to be able to come out and be ourselves and be comfortable with it and be happy about it and be proud to be what we are. And there's no reason to be ashamed of being transgender. We're kind of special, actually. Anyway, every transgender person's or process or transition differs. Because of this, many factors may determine how the individual wishes to live and express their gender identity. Finding a qualified mental health professional who has experience in providing affirmative care for transgender people is an important first step, especially for parents of kids. A qualified professional can provide guidance and referrals to other helping professionals and find the families. GAAD And PFLAG is where you're going to find the advocacy and support. Connecting with other transgender people through peer support groups and transgender community organizations is also helpful. The World Professional Association for Transgender Health, WPATH, a professional organization devoted to the treatment of transgender people, publishes the standards of care for gender identity disorders. I don't think they do at this point call it that. This needs help. I'm going to have a little chat with them. Here we go. Is being transgender a mental disorder? A psychological state is considered a mental disorder only if it causes significant distress or disability. Many transgender people do not experience their gender as distressing or disabling, which implies that identifying as transgender does not constitute a mental disorder. For these individuals, a significant problem is finding affordable resources such as counseling, hormone therapy, medical procedures, and the social support necessary to freely express their gender identity and minimize discrimination. Many other obstacles may lead to distress, including lack of acceptance within society, direct or indirect, experiences with discrimination or assault. These experiences may lead many transgender people to suffer with anxiety, depression, or related disorder at higher rates than non-transgender persons. That's important to note. That most of the really freaky trannies are got issues, external issues that make them that way. According to Diagnostic and Statistic Manual of Mental Disorders, the DSM-5, people who experience intense, persistent gender incongruence can be given the diagnosis of gender dysphoria. Some contend that the diagnosis inappropriately pathologizes gender noncongruence and should be eliminated. Others argue that it is essential to rescind the diagnosis to assure access to care. The International Classification of Diseases is under revision, and there may be changes to its current classification of intense, persistent gender incongruence as gender identity disorder, and it has been changed. So this has got some age to it, because that was changed last year. This is why, when people start citing papers, when they'll bring like fucking 1995 papers from Blanchard and Zucker and McHugh and them fucking 20-year-old papers, 25-year-old papers that have been just totally trashed and completely disproven by the clinical results that they've been tracking people since then. What kind of discrimination do transgender people face? Anti-discrimination laws in most U.S. cities and states do not protect transgender people from discrimination based on gender identity or gender expression. Tucson does. 20 years, and it makes a big difference. Consequently, transgender people in most cities and states face discrimination in nearly every aspect of their lives. The National Center for Transgender Equality and the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force released a report in 2011 entitled Injustice at Every Turn, which confirmed the pervasive and severe discrimination faced by transgender people. Out of a sample of nearly 6,500 transgender people, the report found that transgender people experience high levels of discrimination in employment, housing, healthcare, education, legal systems, and even in their families. It starts in their families, especially in their families. Transgender people may also have additional identities that may affect the types of discrimination they experience. Groups with such additional identities include transgender people of racial, ethnic, or religious minority backgrounds, transgender people of lower socioeconomic statuses, transgender people with disabilities, transgender youth, transgender elderly, and others. Experiencing discrimination may cause significant amounts of psychological stress, often leading transgender individuals to wonder whether they were discriminated against because of their gender identity or gender expression, another socio-cultural identity, or some combination of all of these. According to the study, while discrimination is pervasive for the majority of transgender people, The intersection of anti-transgender bias and persistent structural racism is especially severe. People of color in general fare worse than white transgender people, with African American transgender individuals faring far worse than all other transgender populations examined. Many transgender people are the targets of hate crimes. They are also the victims of subtle discrimination, which includes everything from glances or glares of disapproval or discomfort to invasive questions about their body parts. How can I be supportive of transgender family members, friends, or significant others? Uh, my parents did not accept my statements and just insisted that I wasn't, and I shut up about it. So they really didn't know about it until much later in life. You know, they just like put it out of their mind. You know, I stopped complaining and they put it out of their mind. They weren't happy about the way I behaved. But they had no idea. I lived in silence with it. And they told me, no, you can't be that. And I said, oh, and they were beating me for being it. And I was like, no, I'm just shut up. Educate yourself about transgender issues by reading a book, attending conferences, and consulting with transgender experts. Be aware of your attitudes concerning people with gender nonconforming appearance or behavior. Know that transgender people have membership in various socio-cultural identity groups, e.g. race, social class, religion, age, disability, etc. And there's not one universal way to look or be transgender. Use names and pronouns that are appropriate to the person's gender presentation and identity, and if in doubt, ask. Don't make assumptions about transgender people's sexual orientation, desire for hormonal and medical treatment, or other aspects of their identity or transition plans. If you have a reason to know, for example, you're a physician conducting a necessary physical exam, or you're a person who's interested in dating someone that you've learned is transgender, ask. Don't continue. You know, a lot of us like are happy to just like lay it out, but don't be probing. That's like rude. Don't confuse gender nonconformity with being transgender. Not all people who appear androgynous or gender nonconforming identify as transgender or desire gender affirmation treatment. Keep the lines of communication open with the transgender person in your life. Get support in processing your own reactions. It can take some time to adjust to seeing someone you know well transitioning. Having someone close to you transition will be an adjustment and can be challenging, especially for partners, parents, and children. Seek support in dealing with your feelings. You are not alone. Mental health professionals and support groups for family, friends, and significant others of transgender people can be useful resources. Advocate for transgender rights, including social and economic justice and appropriate psychological care. Familiarize yourself with local and state or provincial laws that protect transgender people from discrimination. Where can I find? They list. I've never heard of families. They list a bunch of stuff here. Sylvia Rivera Project, Trans Youth Family Allies. See some of your National Center, PFLAG. Okay. Yeah, that's like I'll leave them the feedback some other time. So anyway, back to the racial unrest within the transgender community. You know, there was an event. I didn't realize. You know why? They want to. They're demanding inclusion, but then they're excluding white people. That just doesn't make sense to me. And here's Mara Kiesling response to, to her public statement about the NCTE events. Dear colleagues, as longtime trusted allies in the movement for trans equality, we're reaching out to let you know that what is really going on at the National Center for Transgender Equality and tell you about our path forward. First, let me say that NCTE's life-saving work is continuing, and our commitment to improving the lives of trans people by replacing disrespect, discrimination, and violence with empathy, opportunity, and justice remains unwavering. There have been misconceptions about this because of inaccurate media headlines and rumors, so I wanted to clarify that for you. A lot of backbiting going on. wait till you hear the comments on this. This is a new chapter for NCTE. We have a set plan and vision for how our organization will grow moving forward. I think what happened was that they grew too fast, and the founders couldn't handle it, and so they regrouped. As you know, NCTE greatly expanded in response to the increased threats our community faces from the Trump administration, state legislatures, and others. The increased stress that resulted from these threats, combined with not having all the structures and systems needed for a larger organization, meant that we didn't address internal issues fast enough. As a result, our staff voiced concern about areas where NCTE needed to improve. The management team and board took the feedbacks and concerns our staff raised and engaged outside experts to come up with a plan that ensures NCTE's values are reflected within and outside our organization, so we can keep focusing on the tremendous work done here each and every day to advance transgender equality. Our plan examines and will improve every facet of the organization, including recruitment, hiring, onboarding, internal communication structures, workplace flexibility, compensation, community engagement, and other areas to make sure the organization is meeting the needs of its staff and of trans communities. Every part of our plan forward includes a focus on advancing racial equity within NCTE. We know that no organization is immune from bias, and as an organization, we're committed to equity and justice for trans people. We have an obligation to ensure we are consistently demonstrating these principles ourselves. We know we must always do more to foster conversations about these inequities and take concrete action to address them until everyone involved in our work feels fully safe and respected. We asked all staff, including leadership, to join us in this proposed plan forward in order to ensure that all who work at NCTE have the tools necessary to continue working toward our shared mission. We realized this was a big ask of staff and acknowledged that not everyone would want to take part in this new chapter. Therefore, we offered generous severance packages to give staff who decided this next chapter is not for them the stability to make that decision. We offered this excuse because we honor the work our staff has done on behalf of trans people and wanted them to know that. In addition, our leadership team has been eager to recognize the union at NCTE, which we communicated to our staff consistently. The board unanimously passed a resolution to support our plan of voluntary recognizing a bargaining unit. Numerous board members are labor activists themselves. We would be proud and honored to recognize the union at NCTE. Something was wrong with the union. That was where it blew up, was over union organizing. Now we will rebuild and get back to the work that trans people need from NCTE. We'll scale back up systematically, creating an even more effective organization than before. Financial note, NCTE continues to be in a strong financial position with income exceeding expenses for the last several years. Our work continues, and we look forward to continuing to partner with you to achieve equality and justice for our communities now and for many years to come. We are deeply grateful for your dedication to our shared mission of advancing justice for trans people. We look forward to this next chapter and continue to work for you all. Abby said, take it for what it's worth. She's skeptical because of them being eager to form a union, which is where it blew up. Okay, here someone says, huh? And here's somebody. Here's a New Yorker. I see a lot of responses to this situation that are irresponsibly accepting at face value the obviously biased characterizations of one side or the other. No one really seems to be inquiring as to why the previous unionization attempt failed. No one really seems to be questioning whether the criticisms are even warranted. The story didn't just break. There's been mudslinging for months and at least has been covered. It's so vague. Yeah, here's Claire Swinford. She's one of the more prominent Saga members, and Kelly Winters, who's like prominent author, trading it. So much doesn't add up. You propose a plan to improve, and the employees demanding improvement opted to leave. Doesn't wash. The employees fought for a union. If you truly wanted to recognize that union, you would have sat down at the bargaining table, yet that appears to have never occurred. I'm afraid this has answered nothing. And Kelly's saying, it appears that they lost their proofreader along with their workforce. And just who were these outside experts who wrote this plan that ran their ship aground? How many of these experts were trans? How many were trans people of color? And who is now on this board? Only a couple of names are familiar to me, but how on earth could they allow this to happen? I've known Mara for many years. She's my sister, and I will always respect her hard work and dedication. But as a former manager for decades in corporate, academic, and nonprofit settings, I'm aghast at her recent decisions. As an elder trans woman who faces unemployment and homelessness, I'm feeling betrayed. And Claire's response, I found the outside experts curious as well and would love to see their findings. It's not absolute, but when outside consultants are allowed to work unencumbered on an organizational failure, it's generally the management they peg for replacement, not staff. No single staffer can ever be pointed to as the cause of systemic failure. Systemic failure, cultural collapse, or management issues. Yes, that's true, but like this other person said, was the complaint legit in the first place? You know, who failed? And again, there's a racial disturbance here. It's a race thing. It's I'm seeing it all over the country, and the heat's on the black community because of all the murders are all black women of color, black trans women, and I'm sure that the violence, you know, the amount of grief they get. I mean, I just can't imagine it, because I don't experience it. I've never been where it happens much even. I mean, they didn't do that where I grew up. You know, there were trans people all over the streets in my neighborhood, and there was some fag bashing here and there, but that was it. People didn't just go and like be taunting the transgender people all the time. But I know people that can't I have a friend who can't leave her front stoop. She can't go to the store. People yelling at her. Kids and the Ugandan refugees in Kenya, the trans kids can't go anywhere outside their little compound without an escort because all the shit, all the rocks and stuff get thrown at them. Well, yeah, it is. I'm running out of steam with my mouth. Maybe I'll play a little music and then cut out. Nah, nah, my head's just not there. Anyway, since nobody's like, no, I'm not keeping much attention tonight with anybody, and nobody's like really wanting to chat, and it's okay, cause I read the thing and hope that it was useful for people, and thanks for coming. Happy day, bye.